Well, hello and welcome once again to Hude Progress Report, an offshoot of our regular Hude Hour program, where we take a look at happenings within the space, we break them down, we measure the progress being made, and we talk about solutions. As always, I am Amadine Ubewi.
And I am Joan Eze. Thank you so much for joining us. You're welcome.
And also we have with us here Paul Oladipupo to join us to break down what's the progress so far on solutions. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much for having me, Amadine.
Hi,
good morning, John.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you doing, John?
Good morning, Amadine. How are you doing today?
I'm good, sir. I'm good. Is there any progress being made this time around?
I mean, there are a lot of progresses, and it's really nice to see that there's progress in this space that we're talking about. And for me, it's very interesting. And you know that I love talking about progress. Good news is it's more like my forte is things that I'm a what's it called now?
Advocate for the good news.
Exactly. I'm not just an advocate. I'm also a preacher of the good news.
Oh, okay.
Within this space, it's very important to highlight that because we can see regularly there are things that are enough to cause sadness or depression.
Yeah.
But it's important to let people know there's
Exactly.
hope. Now, talking about hope, let's start with Africa. Bill Gates says Africa will eradicate malaria and achieve major health and agricultural milestones in the next 20 years. Speaking at the Goalkeepers Nigeria event in Lagos, the Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist said the continent's past successes in health, combined with innovation and stronger partnerships, would lead to greater prosperity. Gates said his foundation, which plans to spend most of its $200 billion budget over the next 2 decades before winding down, will focus heavily on partnering with African governments committed to improving public health. He highlighted that vaccines for diseases like rotavirus and pneumococcus have already reduced child mortality, and investments in maternal health, HIV prevention, and nutrition have shown clear progress. He added that improving health systems would help African economies grow, citing examples from Asian countries that achieved middle-income status by investing in health. On malaria, Gates said the disease should be completely eradicated from Africa within the next 20 years. He also predicted a rise in the number of wealthy individuals on the continent in that time frame. Gates addressed the issue of hunger, arguing that Nigeria should be a food exporter rather than an importer. He said many African children suffer from malnutrition and that each country must develop its own food production plan using technology. He noted that countries like the US, India, and Brazil are already using technology to improve yields, and that Africa should follow suit. He pointed out that Nigeria's agricultural productivity is only a quarter of that of the US due to limited access to fertilizers and improved crop varieties. The Gates Foundation is currently supporting efforts to introduce better seed varieties like telemaize, improve soil quality, and enhance livestock genetics. Gates mentioned that these efforts have already led to better poultry production and lower egg prices in countries like Ethiopia. He also criticized misinformation around genetically modified organisms and fertilizers, saying it delays policies that could help farmers. He called on governments to make informed, country-specific decisions to boost food production. Gates said artificial intelligence could transform African agriculture by providing small farmers with precise, timely advice. He explained that digital tools should help farmers know when and what to plant and how to protect their crops from disease. The Gates Foundation currently spends about 8% of its budget on agriculture, a figure expected to grow to between 12 and 14%. Over 70% remains focused on health. Other speakers at the event included Aliko Dangote, who said Nigeria should transform its health sector, just as it did the petroleum industry, and Governor Mohammed Yahaya of Gombe State, who said improved primary health care had helped increase immunization coverage and reduce mortality in his state. The Goalkeepers Nigeria event brought together global leaders, scientists, and changemakers to assess Africa's progress on sustainable development goals. Well, I think it pretty much covers it all. The Goalkeepers initiative was started as some sort of in conjunction with the Sustainable Development Goals. I mean, goalkeepers, keeping the goals. But that aside, I think what some of the more interesting panel sessions from that event yesterday, the first in Lagos, by the way, included the mentions of AI and, how the World Economic Forum has projected a couple billion dollars that will be coming to Africa within the next couple of years. And we also have that Africa is going to have the most, by 2035, I believe, we're going to have the most young persons coming into the workforce, more than combined the other countries. So all this being said, it just goes to show that there's work being done. And another thing I particularly want to point out is that the Gates Foundation has said that it's going to wind down. There is a time, and I think that is something that I personally, it's a personal thing, I personally like to hear things like that, because what we see a lot is that people feel as though if you are getting funds to solve a problem, you are not incentivized to actually solve that problem. You're going to let it run. So when somebody says, I'm going to spend $200 billion in your continent, a foundation says they're going to spend $200 billion in the continent in this amount of time, and then we're going to stop or we're going to wind down. It means that we actually want to solve these problems and leave it solved. That's about sustainability. So that's what I'm hoping to see, and I hope other persons within the field can take that mindset that we're not here. In fact, the longer you're here and the thing, what you're doing cannot survive past you, it means that it's not sustainable. So let's work towards sustainability with all the goals in mind.
I think to come into that sustainability, it will also help to eradicate dependency, to make Africa to understand that, okay, there's a hope coming, there's a help coming, but there's a limited period for it. Yeah. So in as much as this particular help has come to the continent, it doesn't mean you should solely depend on it. Rather, you should also build your own capacity to continue the work that has already been established. I want to go to the aspect of the governor of Gombe State. He was also in that particular meeting. And there was something he said, and it's something that Bill Gates called out government and other organizations to take hold of. And there is something very important he spotted out about the primary health sector, how he has improved it in his state, and how one of the strategies he used was by getting to the people, the rural areas, and also encouraging the people in the health sectors to take it very, very serious, right? And it's something that other governors should also adopt, making it, even though in the interview and during the panel session, the panelists, or the person actually interviewing them, made a statement that you're not in the health sector, but you are actually promoting and fostering a very good development in this particular angle. And it's something that it doesn't mean you should be in the system, but you should also help to elevate the system.
Exactly. I mean, a lot was said in that event, and it was a really amazing one. I was expecting you to mention the fact that MI performed at that event as your goat. But regardless, that's just on the light side. One of the things that MI's created song was sending is the fact that it's time for Africa to shine. And also it's aligned so much with Gates Foundation, with one of the things that he said also, that we're expecting more wealth created here in Africa. And in the next few years, you should see more philanthropies from Africa that will help as well to solve all of these problems. And I think that is why he's trying to wind down action here in Nigeria. But regardless, Bill Gates has done a lot that come from 25 years ago now, which he also stated. But I'll quickly, you talk about the government, the government of Gombe, that's Governor Yahaya. But it's his own, for him, primary health care is more like a personal thing. So it feels like a personal goal and one that he wants it to work. And I mean, he has mentioned the fact that vaccine coverage right now in Gombe State is more than it used to be. And also, Bill Gates also mentioned the fact that Africa's vaccine coverage is very, is so much high, even compared to other continents here in the world. But it's really nice to see that. Also, another thing that was mentioned again was the use of AI, bringing AI into health and all of that. And then I also would love to take this last one from Aliko Dangote, who mentioned the fact that in the next few years you should be expecting, fine, we're already producing this, mentioned about fertilizers, mentioned about right now exporting to the US and things like that, mentioned a number of things. But in the next few years you see more in the health space. And very soon we should expect that even Nigeria is one of those health tourist centers, so that we can. So he made a statement saying that even he himself will not need to go out in search for better health. But that's just on the that's what happened at the event. One last thing again is Ebuka's statement, which was more like a call to action to every one of us, because we are talking now on the broader scope, what government should do, what individuals should do, and all of that. But now he mentioned that it's not about what government should do and what organizations should do, but rather, what can you do in your own community? Take action in your own community. And then we have the likes of Ifeoluwa Dare Johnson, a CEO of an health tech company here in Nigeria, whose goal is to ensure that there's access to healthcare to everyone. Our goal is to ensure that nobody in Africa dies. And let's quickly take our verified voices quickly from those who were there at the event and also shared in the joy of keeping all of these goals together at the Goalkeepers event there in Lagos. So it's a very interesting one. This very first one is from Eze Obi, who says that #Goalkeeper 2030, the first time ever the goalkeeper is hosted in Nigeria and indeed Africa. It is really Africa in motion as we champion African-led innovation to accelerate the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, #Africa in motion. And the next tweet quickly from Yusuf, who also was at the event. Yusuf says that a very important conversation with Bill Gates and Aliko Dangote at the Goalkeepers 2030 event tonight on the future of AI in health, innovative solutions, and funding partnership in an age of uncertainty, truly inspired by the moral clarity and deep commitment to solve the biggest health problems. I mean, you mentioned the fact that, Bill Gates also mentioned the fact that if we can invest in healthcare, we should expect that our economies grows, and that's what Asia did.
He also meant, exactly, the Asian countries and so on.
And now
so let's quickly move on now to our next news item, so we see what's up next.
Flavored nicotine and tobacco products are driving a surge in youth addiction and undermining decades of progress in global tobacco control, the World Health Organization has warned. In a statement released ahead of World No Tobacco Day, the United Nations Health Agency raised alarm over the increasing appeal of flavored nicotine products to young people, citing flavors like menthol, bubble gum, and cotton candy as key drivers behind youth experimentation and addiction. The WHO said flavors are masking the harshness of toxic products and turning them into youth-friendly bites, noting that these additives not only increase usage, but also making quitting more difficult and having been linked to serious lung diseases. The agency criticized youth-oriented marketing strategies, including brightly colored packaging and fruity flavored descriptors, which research shows can stimulate reward centers in adolescents' brains while weakening the impact of health warnings. Social media is also playing a significant role in the promotion of these products. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus warned that without bold action, the global tobacco epidemic will continue to be driven by addiction dressed up with appealing flavors. The call to action urges governments to ban all flavorings in tobacco and nicotine products in line with Articles 9 and 10 of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, FCTC, which regulates the content and disclosure of tobacco products. Although over 50 countries have adopted policies to restrict or ban flavorings as of December 2024, the WHO notes that the tobacco industry continues to circumvent these measures through accessories like sprays, capsules, and flavor-infused filter tips. The World Health Organization is now pushing all 184 FCTC signatories, representing 90% of the world's population, to adopt and enforce comprehensive bans to protect young people from a lifetime of addiction and a tobacco-related disease. Tobacco use continues to cause over 8 million deaths globally each year. Well, it's quite a sad thing to behold. It brings me to this particular saying, sheep in wolf clothing. This is exactly what it's talking about. When a particular thing that maybe youths can easily grab, maybe a snack or something just to keep their day going, has been infused with a heart destructive, chemical substance. And it's quite unfortunate that it's coming in flavors, different flavors that are very attractive to these youth, to these young and adolescent people. And it's something that the WHO has seen as a very huge concern for youth to be aware of. And all.
I think you put it when you said the disguise, because I'll give more of an anecdotal offering here. Yeah. I've been in places where with fellow young persons who now see these things as similar to maybe taking a cup of water, something you can do with a stranger. Because, there used to be messaging around this where people who smoke go off to a corner and they do it, and, because there's some sort of stigma around it.
Yes, of course.
Because people say you're going to die young and all of that. Even taking it up to insurance companies will ask you, are you a smoker? It should strike something in your head. Why do you... I'm talking about life insurance now. Yeah. Because they want to know how liable you are to, let's not go into that. But the point I'm trying to make is the normalization. All of these policies are being made, all of these conventions, is just to protect people as much as they can. So that whatever you want to give to them, let them see it at the very least almost in its raw form, so that they cannot be cajoled. Yeah. Because like I said, I go places and I'm meeting you for the first time, and you have a little stick with you, and you're, and it smells like vanilla, or it smells like banana, or strawberry, and it just seems harmless. But so I think at the end of the day, all of this is being done to protect young persons as much as they can, because at the end of the day, they still have agency over themselves. Yeah. Those are overage, that is. And at the end of the day, they will take those decisions. But we have to make it easy for people to be able to spot what could harm them or not.
Okay, yeah. I'll just highlight 3 things quickly. And one of such is the fact that those who are smokers here are liable to have diabetes, 30 to 40% of high risk compared to non-smokers. And that alone should send a signal. And, people say that all of these e-cigars here and there are not as harmful as the cigarette itself. But you see, it's the same thing at the end of the day. It's the same substance that is inside.
Same capacity.
Exactly. Smokeless tobacco or smoked tobacco is still the same. Snuffs, dips, all of them, basically. But I think one of the things that was mentioned is the fact of the role of social media in all of this. Yeah. And I think it's a very alarming one in the real sense because of misinformation. I mean, there's a high rate of misinformation there on social media, and people are there consuming it. I was just literally just searched nicotine before coming on sets on Twitter, and I was seeing all sorts that nicotine is not this, nicotine is safe, it's wrong information, is that and that, all of that. It just keeps me wondering that what exactly is going on, and it's sad to see that my people perish because of lack of knowledge. At the end of the day,
preach of the good news.
Okay, quickly let's take our verified voices from WHO. Right there, talking about tobacco. This was tweeted, I think, on the World Tobacco's Day. Preaching, sending the same message they were talking about. It says, candy-coated lies, enticing new users and keeping existing ones hooked. The tobacco and nicotine industry targets people of all ages with products and design tailored to different groups while deliberately preying on the youth. The manipulation stops here, #tobacco exposed. ahead of hashtag World No Tobacco Day tomorrow. Let's unmask the appeal and expose the truth. And that's what we're doing right here, preaching the truth to the general public to ensure that all of these things is subsidized, because it's really sad to see all of this happening in our environment. And there are a lot of health hazards when it comes to the use of nicotine.
Indeed. And it also speaks again to ethical advertising. You have to let people know what you are giving them. Don't sugarcoat it when there are dangers involved. Anyway, we'll go on a quick break now. When we return, we'll take our final news item of the day. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now to our final news item. The resumed second session of the United Nations Habitat Assembly concluded recently in Nairobi with a renewed international commitment to addressing one of the world's most pressing challenges, the global housing crisis. The week-long gathering brought together high-level government officials, urban development experts, and key stakeholders from around the world to chart a bold course for sustainable urban futures. Held at the United Nations office in Nairobi, the Assembly served as the highest global decision-making body on sustainable urbanization and human settlements. The session focused on forging consensus and practical strategies to confront mounting challenges in housing, infrastructure, climate change, and inequality, especially in the world's rapidly urbanizing regions. According to UN Habitat, over 1.12 billion people currently live in slums or informal settlements, with an additional 300 million experiencing absolute homelessness. The crisis is particularly acute in Africa, where 62% of urban dwellings are informal, and in the Asia-Pacific region, where more than 500 million lack access to basic water services, and over 1 billion live without adequate sanitation. These vulnerabilities are further compounded by climate-related risks such as extreme heat, floods, and water scarcity. A major highlight of the Assembly was the adoption of the UN Habitat Strategic Plan for 2026 to 2029, which places adequate housing, secure land tenure, and basic services at the center of sustainable urban transformation. The plan is built on 3 key pillars: inclusive prosperity, climate sustainability, and preparedness, recovery, and reconstruction. It aims to accelerate progress toward the SDGs and respond to the growing needs of urban populations, especially in regions grappling with climate change, conflict, and deepening inequality. Executive Director of UN Habitat, Anna Claudia Rosbach, said the plan was ambitious yet doable. Kenya's Cabinet Secretary for Lands, Public Works, Housing and Urban Development, Alice Wahome, speaking on behalf of President William Ruto, emphasized that the right to adequate housing must move beyond principles to tangible implementations. The Assembly also confirmed that World Urban Forum 13 will take place in Baku, Azerbaijan in 2026 under the theme Housing the World, Safe and Resilient Cities and Communities. The forum is expected to be a major milestone in advancing global dialogue and partnerships around housing as a foundation for climate adaptation, social inclusion, and economic opportunity. In addition to key policy outcomes, the Assembly ushered in new leadership for its governance structures. Malaysia was elected president of the UN Habitat Assembly for the 2025 to 2027 term, with the United Arab Emirates set to assume the role for 2027 to 2029. Both countries will share a seat on UN Habitat's executive board alongside 36 newly elected member states. All right, I think it's been repeated so much that it's very obvious to say that climate change and adaptability is a key focus in solving the housing issue. Again, when we talk about housing, it should be livable. It's a right that people have, and it shouldn't, the quality of the housing matters. And now the quality matters even more in the face of climate change, because a house that perhaps was fit to live in just a couple of years ago now needs modifications when preparing your town planning for the next couple of years, factoring in climate change for sustainability, for reusable items, recyclable items, to ensure that even as you're building, you're not destroying. And I think that's the key point to take away from there. And now we're hearing this recommitment to getting this done by all the major stakeholders?
Well, I look forward to what the plan that UN Habitat Assembly has actually arranged for 2026 to 2029. And I hope to see something sustainable, that people will come out of homelessness and go into having good homes, not just homes, quality homes, and places where whenever the climate change comes, they are resilient. There's a backing that they have, and will not really have such humanitarian crisis anymore.
Exactly. It was a wonderful one there in Nairobi, talking about the UN Habitat Assembly. So it's one that gathered about over 1,000 participants there, and it was a very interesting one to see. And also, one thing I love so much is the fact that they are looking forward to a more sustainable urbanization of our environment. Yeah. And I'll just mention two cities here. One is Lagos here in Africa. And Lagos is said to be humid at the moment, so much of heat and things like that. And this is basically because of urbanization. Yeah. Most trees are cut down. No trees is being planted back. Trees are where green used to be are replaced by houses and things like that. That's there in Lagos. So we should be looking at more ways to plant trees in cities like that. Also in Paris, yeah. For Paris, the case there in Paris is actually quite different. They usually have so much vehicles flying the street of Paris, and at the point now they have to close down some streets to vehicular movement. And those are the things that we are saying, that in order to build sustainable futures for us, sustainable environment for us, we have to do some things, take some actions, intentional actions. And I think that is one of the things that we're preaching here today. And that's one of the things that's also mentioned right there at the assembly right there in Nairobi. Quickly, we'll take our verified voices from UN Habitat. This one is very interesting. We're talking about what was said at the assembly right there in Nairobi. Quickly, let's take this one from UN Habitat. A tweet from them saying, at UNHA2, members and partners explore the new people-centered smart cities guidelines, a global benchmark to ensure digital transformation which puts people first. Inclusion, resilience, and also digital rights. Quickly, we'll take the second one as well, which is just this. All of these things just reiterating all of the things that we've said all along. And that's a wrap. This was the last tweet from them, from the assembly, saying that it's a wrap on UNHA2. Over 1,002 participants gathered in Nairobi for 2 days for high-level dialogue, bold commitments, and new partnership. Strategic plan adopted, housing at the center of it all, partnership renewed, and new leadership elected. I think the new leader was from Malaysia, if I get that right. It's a very wonderful one to see all of these things happening. It's more strategic, more intentional, more commitment, new partnership, and also old partnership as well, renewed. And those are the things I want to see. That's the kind of thing that we also saw at the Goalkeepers event here in Lagos. So how do you go to
progress all around.
Exactly.
So we're happy to report this news. And we do hope we get to see more of these solutions and collaborations that lead to tangible results for the people.
I mean, we're always used to seeing the problems here and there, but we really want to see more solutions in our environments, more in the news, more in the development. Yes, there's also solutions, also implementations, innovative solutions, basically.
Indeed, that's why we're here. And we do hope you will join us once again to bring you more updates in the space, things that are working well, things that are in the process of becoming better, and sustainable development all around. Thanks so much for being with us today. I am Amadine Ogbewe. Bye for now.
And I am Joan Eze. Stay progressive. Bye for now.
I remain my humble self, Paul Olatupopo. Bye for now.